Well, Martin, it has been a heck of a year. What do you mean it's driven me crazy? Look, just because I haven't talked to as many visitors and I'm starved to interpret anything doesn't mean I'm going crazy. I'm missing an opportunity right now. Oh, hey everybody. Ranger Andrew here. Didn't see you there. I was just talking to Martin here about how the new year is almost upon us. Say, Martin, how did you used to celebrate New Year's back when you were around? Martin? Oh, looks like he must have needed a cup of coffee. Luckily, I already did some research. New Year's would have looked very different when Van Buren was alive, and that makes sense if you think about it. Perhaps our largest tradition of counting down to the new year would have been very unrealistic to expect, especially early in Van Buren's life, when accurate timekeeping was simply unnecessary for the vast majority of people. Later on in his life, it becomes more of a deal as railroads become popularized and hourly labor is a thing. But early on, would have been difficult, if not unrealistic, to expect of the vast majority of people. So how did Van Buren celebrate? Well, we don't know for sure, but a newspaper article I found from the early 1900s laments the passing of old Dutch traditions in favor of sort of large-scale Roaring Twenties partying on the New Year's. And the traditions it mentions specifically something called Dutch calling, which it claims lasted from the colonial days until the 1880s. And Dutch calling was the practice of visiting everyone who was important in your life on New Year's Eve. It was considered a big social snub to not visit someone on this occasion, And this would have been a time period where you visited everyone's home, which would have been open for food, drink. Sometimes total strangers would have been invited into your home. And it was seen as a time to bury family disputes and really come together and reforge relationships that were going to be important for the coming year. There were also traditional foods, of course, but the celebrations of New Year's varied wildly depending on where you were in the country. So those were the Dutch traditions, but there were also Scottish traditions, Hogmanay, French traditions, and so on, because New Year's was one of the largest holidays celebrated by pretty much everyone at the time. Although it's surprising to think about it in modern times, but Christmas wasn't really widely celebrated for most of, especially the early part of Van Buren's lifetime. In some countries, the celebration of Christmas had been banned for hundreds of years as a Catholic tradition. So in the mostly Protestant early United States, it simply wasn't celebrated in most places. So New Year's, instead, was the big celebration of the year. But what about a different New Year's tradition? Would Van Buren have linked arms with friends and family and sang Auld Lang Syne to ring in the new year? Probably not, although Auld Lang Syne did exist during Van Buren's lifetime. The song was first written down in 1788 when Van Buren was 6 years old, although the song probably predated his lifetime. Robert Burns was actually the person who first took it down, the poet laureate of Scotland. And he sent it to a music museum that year, claiming that he had taken it down from an old man. The song is old, at least certain parts of it, but there's a great debate over how much of the song is actually old and how much of it Burns himself wrote. I am in no way qualified to weigh in on that discussion, so all I will say is that there seems to be a consensus that some of it is old and some of it was probably Burns' own writing. But either way, the song very quickly became popular, even if Burns didn't live to see that, as he dies at the age of 37. But the song is set to music, but new music is written for it in the 1790s, and that is the tune that we think of today. And that tune is not the only musical arrangement that it gets. Beethoven actually writes a piece for Auld Lang Syne in 1818, and many others chime in as well. Sousa actually quotes Auld Lang Syne in his own work, and so on. And it takes a few decades, but it does become associated with New Year's in Scotland. It makes sense as a song about celebrating the old as you ring in the new. In the United States, there is evidence that it is celebrated with things like funerals, graduations in a few cases during Van Buren's lifetime, but it doesn't seem as though it becomes associated with New Year's until well after his lifetime, perhaps the 1920s or 30s in the United States. Now, of course, it's popular throughout the English-speaking world. But the reason that I think Auld Lang Syne is fitting to mention here is that it has been translated a number of ways over the years. Days Gone By, Long, Long Ago, more colorfully, Once Upon a Time. But literally translating Auld Lang Syne, it reads Old Long Since. And here at the Van Buren site, the Old Long Since is really what we're all about. Well, everybody, that brings us to the end of this video and the end of this year. It has been a heck of a year, and I hope that you have enjoyed some of the content we've made over the course of it. Whether it was worth learning something or at least a giggle, I hope you enjoyed it. And from all of us here at the Van Buren site, and from myself personally, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a very safe, happy, and healthy new year. And we will see you next year for some more of the Auld Lang Syne. Take care.
Good old acquaintance be forgot and never